quorum. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, we do.
Councillor Muku, could I ask you to commence with the karakia, please?
Ka pai. Kia ora tātou. E te mea pai kua tutuki ana e tātou I tēnā whakatau mō I taku tuahine. Ka kua nei ake ana I taku ngākau he hoa mōku. Tēnei te ni, tēnei te puna tau, rōri e uru ana ta whare o uenuku. E here a ki reira te ihi te tapu te mana. A eke ki runga ka whanua tua ki te pū, ki te wānanga ki te tau I rā. Ka tū te tongi kura ko te a ki ngā te mea nui ka tatu kei runga kei a mātou. Tēnei te nini, tēnei te nana, tēnei te hanga o te tupua. A whina te a paingia, ko rangi nui e tui ho nei, ko papatua nuku e takato nei. Tātou te whānau kauni hera o kirikiri roa e pai nei. Tūturu a whiti whakamaua kia tīna. Haumi e, hui e, taiki e.
Thank you. Well, colleagues, we'll get underway. Thank you. First of all, can I just quickly add, Councillor Huata, my very warm welcome to the Chamber. It's a delight to have you, and I think it's fair to say that I was very impressed with this morning, and you carry mana, and I think that's very clear, so I look forward to working with you. Colleagues, we have a number of items. There's a couple of good meaty items in PX, but let's get some of the formality underway if I could. I have apologies, full absence from Councillor Tim. Yes, Mayor Paula.
Oh, you could have continued your list. I'd been on the end.
Yep.
Apologies for ducking out for an interview about Peacock at 11:30, or 11ish, 20ish.
Okay, thank you. I also have a potential partial attendance from Councillor Mark.
That,
Yep.
I thought this was Maria's day, but I seem to have featured twice in the apologies.
Yeah, that was my mistake.
Least most important. Can they be wiped? Because I'm just going to be here all day.
You're going to be here all day. I'm sure we can do that. Okay. And a partial attendance from Anna. Is that Emma? Okay, I do apologise. From Councillor Emma, I think she's joining us online later. I have also Councillor Kesh for lateness, and I have, for some reason, the Deputy Mayor, but we'll remove that as well.
Oh, I have to leave at 12 for a council appointment.
All right, so there's a lot of people coming and going, so it should be an interesting day with quorum. Councillor Maxine.
Kia ora, a late apology from me, not for lateness, but that I may need to leave the meeting early should we go beyond 2:45.
All right, thank you for that heads up. Well, we'll all work constructively to try to plough through this agenda, and we might have to take a breath every once in a while as people come and go, but let's see if we can maintain quorum. So I'll move those, seconded by Councillor Mark. All those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. Now moving to the confirmation of agenda. The agenda as is, the run sheets are in front of you. I'll move the agenda, seconded by Councillor Jeff. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Any declaration of interest? No. No public forum. Right, so confirmation of the Economic Development Committee meetings, open minutes of the 9th of May. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Mark. Are there any corrections, colleagues? If not, I'll move. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. Colleagues, now moving to item 6, the Chair's report. Look, just very briefly, it's obviously It will come as no surprise to you when you've read the documentation or you've just observed what's going on globally. The economy globally is under stress. It's fair to say that there is an indication of better times coming. The US and Canada have shown recently a reduction in interest rates, and I think that will flow through to New Zealand, which will help some of our businesses and households. But we will have a challenging time ahead. I hear a lot about the mantra, survive till 25 from businesses. And so I think we just need to be mindful of that. But other than that, we can be comforted that we have a very diverse economy. And so we are somewhat insulated by that. And we have some really good economic impact data that will be presented during the day. And we are very lucky to have such talented staff. So that's my chair's report. Open to any questions. If no questions, I will move, seconded by Councillor Louise. All of those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. General Manager's report, item 7. Blair, we're in your capable hands.
Thank you, Chair Ewan. Councillors, my report just provides a snapshot of progress against the outcomes that we've set for the committee. That is an attachment 1. I also draw your attention to paragraph 8, which just lists in a simple summary some of the key highlights for the last quarter. So very happy to take questions, noting that some of the matters are also further transversed through the agenda of today's meeting.
Colleagues, so I'll move the recommendation, which is simply to receive the report, seconded by Councillor Maxine. Open it up for questions, colleagues. Mayor Paula, excuse me.
Thank you. Just in terms of the greenfield growth investment and investment and employment from industrial users, Ruakura and Rotorua Northwest, can you just, are you able to tell us about how that's progressing? It's ongoing, but can you give us a little feel of that, please?
Sorry, can you just elaborate your question, Mayor Paula?
It's the one that you're reporting against under growth programs, under greenfield growth around industrial users, Ruakura and Rotorua.
Yes.
Is there, because yellow suggests that there's work ongoing, I was just wondering if you could give me a quick summasis about what's progressing in there.
Yeah, so obviously in item 9 within that report there is an update on the growth programs which goes into some more detail of the work that the team are doing across those various industrial nodes. There's two sides to this. One is the work that is led by Councillor Sarah Thompson's committee around infrastructure partnerships and investment, and the work that we do with the major developers in that space. The second is the work led by Mike Bennett and his team around outreach to our key businesses, and that's also outlined in that report, also in PX. So, Mayor Paula, I think in summary, we are maintaining a very active liaison involvement across those industrial areas. I note the long-term plan financial challenges in terms of investment and infrastructure, and that often is a key focus of our discussions. But equally, as Michael will talk to later, there is real value in understanding the businesses, what they need, what they want, what their story is, and how we can help those businesses both remain in Hamilton and grow. So lots of engagement across various channels.
Any other questions, colleagues? If not, I will put the recommendation. It's been seconded. Any debate? No? So, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Moving now on to item 9. Sorry, Councillor Bitter, I've just seen you on the screen, so welcome, a very warm welcome. So, Councillor 9. Let's try item 9, strategic general update. Yeah, why don't we actually go in order? Because I had ticked it on my list. Okay, so let's go with item 8, which is the external agency and CCO reporting. Blair, that's you as well.
Yes, I'll just briefly introduce this on behalf of David Bryant. So 2 matters covered in this report. One is the Civic Assurance or Civic Financial Services annual report. And you'll note that Civic largely for council now is a shareholding that supports our staff superannuation scheme. So there's the annual report attached there. The second matter really responds to a request around information on the activities of CoLab and the benefits they provide to Hamilton City Council. So there's information, including the report from their annual report, which summarises some of the key areas that CoLab has been working on and providing value to shareholders. So happy to take questions on both those matters.
So, colleagues, open it up for questions. Obviously, one of the things EDC does is the home for these external agencies. So if you have any questions on those issues. If not, I will move, seconded by... oh, excellent. Councillor...
These are on the reports, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just a quick question in regards to the CoLab's Value to Councils report. I'm just interested in the enabling 21.5% reduction in councils' greenhouse gas emissions. I'm just wanting some more information. Is there anything, any further detail in that? It sounds significant.
It does, and
Yeah.
I don't have any more detail, but I'm happy to take that offline.
Yeah, that would be great.
And
Just
maybe
a bit
we
more
can catch
detail
up on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Paula.
It's also on CoLab. Good to see what they're delivering already. I wonder, I'm just interested in going forward, of course. What's their next cab off the rank? What's their next leverage that they give us? And I'm not sure where that sits, but of course it's not captured in there. That's what they're already doing and how they're already operating. Is there any update, or will there be an update? We talk about this at Futureproof. We talk about this at the JMAs with other councils. When might it come here, Ewan, in terms of you considering?
The last meeting, Mayor Paula, I think, had the CoLab statement of intent, which included their key projects for the new financial year. So I would probably, first of all, recommend looking at that particular report.
Yeah, just,
What I can certainly also note is that CoLab are very active in supporting the work of the Waikato Waters Done Well work that Vaughan Payne is leading on behalf of the Waikato. So they are taking an active interest in all matters waters in relation to that. But I'm happy to have that statement of intent circulate around if you wish.
I just wonder through you, Mr. Chair, if there's an opportunity at some stage in a workshop or some other way for us to kind of look deeper down their future as well. It would be something that this committee would fit well with, I think.
Sure. I'm relaxed about that. If you feel that would be helpful.
I think, I also note that we wrote quite a strong letter, Mayor Paula, to CoLab following the last meeting where this committee asked for CoLab to really take a very strategic and step it up. So that challenge has been put to CoLab.
So Amy's taken a note regarding the suggested workshop.
Or a briefing or something where we've got greater time to kind of be a bit iterative with it, Ewan, if that's okay.
Sure,
please.
absolutely. We really did have a good bite at the cherry the last meeting we had, but happy to do that again. All right. So no further questions. I don't see any on the board or online. So it's been moved and it's been seconded. No need for debate. Any debate? No? I'll move it. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. We are making great progress, colleagues. Item 9. Mike.
So just through the chair, there's obviously various parts to this report, so we'll just take them through in steps if you're happy with that,
Yeah,
Chair Ewan. So
absolutely.
we'll start with the economic development update, and then
And we'll do questions after each step if we
yes,
could.
that'd be
Yeah.
best.
So, colleagues, questions after each of Mike's salient points. Mike.
We'll take the report as read, and I'll just comment on the 3 main areas of our program. And then apologies from Tiki Mossop. She's not able to be here or online. So I do have, I'll do my best impression of her. She's given me some stuff to read. With the attachment, her report, Greg Karstens is online as well. So any questions in that space, Greg can handle. And of course, welcome email questions for Tiki. We'll make sure. I know that that's a big part of this report. So on the economic development bit, there is an attachment, 2 attachments in fact. The first one relates to our employer engagement. That's the work led by Arif Khan. So in that space, really, again, that's fundamental to the work of economic development program. And Arif does an amazing job of really being a constant, proactive, and just really engaging presence with businesses across 3 of our 5 main sectors. I think it's really important to note that engagement works really well for those 3 sectors covered in the report. The other 2, which are critically important to our economy, healthcare as a broad sector, as well as education, we handle that engagement kind of one-on-one separately. And in fact, with Lance's guidance, as well as Sean and Blair, we're continuing to progress a really healthy relationship with the university. To that end, though, that engagement that RF leads really is complementary to the economic data and statistical work of Tiki. I think bringing those both together, sort of the quantitative and qualitative, really, I think, gives a full picture on what's happening from a macro level, and then really what businesses are telling people like RF face-to-face. It's not survey work. He goes out and spends an hour or 2 at each business and has really, over the last year and a half, made amazing relationships. Why that's important, I think, plays into our work in shaping narratives. Again, when we had outreach with relatively short notice from our former colleague, Ryan Hamilton, and his colleagues in Parliament, that they were coming to town and wanted to talk tech, really broad. Leveraging those relationships, we're able to pretty quickly bring together about 40 tech business leaders for a really, really good session. Mayor Paula and Blair were there. So that's sort of the why we do that engagement, and we want to do much more of that, that type of work, leveraging on RF's work. Then lastly, 2 quick points. On investment promotion, again, bang the drum on Tech in the Tron. The links are in the report. Really, really good content. Tomorrow there's an initiative. Again, we can't do everything, but NZ Tech, which is a large group, they have a subgroup called Tech Women, and that group is putting on, continuing their annual program called Shadow Day, and they're organizing 1,000 students across the country in 8 or 9 cities, one of them being Hamilton, where these young girls go into tech businesses so that they can, see for real what a career in tech looks like. So while that's fully NZ Tech and Tech Women, we're using our resources in Tech in the Tron to capture some of that at 2 of the businesses here tomorrow, and then help just show that and put it out, that the work that other people are doing and platforming it. And then just lastly, there's been a lot of work going on with myself and my colleagues at within the subregion, so particularly at Waikato District Council and at WIPA, and really working together for the last year or more on economic development matters. What we're doing now, and Friday is a meeting where we're going to go before the Future Fit group and really start to understand how can we, as the 4 TAs in Future Fit, create a platform within that for economic development to formalize how we work together. So more to come on that. I think after Friday we'll have a lot more guidance on the steps forward with that. I'll pause there and take questions if Arif is here to answer
Yes.
questions on the report.
Arif, welcome. Feel free to come up if you... Colleagues, any questions of either Mike or Arif on this first insight? Councillor Donovan.
Thanks, Chair Ewan. Thanks, Mike and Arif, for the work that you guys are doing. My question was going to be around uplift in inquiry from other businesses, bearing in mind the fantastic information that Tiki provides, and we supply that to businesses in Hamilton at no charge, and you've got your group or cohort, for want of a better word, of customers. Is there more customers, can I call them that, coming on board, or in terms of you getting face-to-face with them? And are they referring others to us?
Thank you, Councillor. I assume you're relating to the meetings we're having,
Yeah.
the businesses we're speaking to.
Yeah.
So simple answer is yes. The core focus for me at the start of this year was to continue building off those relationships that we'd worked on last year.
Yep.
And to keep growing it. Obviously, the target for this year remains 75, but we aim to continue engaging past that number. As you yourself know, being involved in the business community, it is a big network. People will refer you on, and it's been fairly easy and fairly rewarding to go out and meet with new businesses. So in short, we are continuing and we are getting new businesses,
Yep.
engaging with new. It's not the same 75 or 80 from last year. It's the register will continue growing.
I think just to add to that, what I've found really interesting is Arif leveraging the relationships I mentioned earlier, where he's going, like APL is a great example. The broader company has a presence here in Hamilton, but also just across the border in the south. We really kind of blur those boundaries and go to that meeting at APL with Arif as well as the Waipa district person. So that's probably another way that we're growing that impact.
Thanks.
Councillor Anna.
Kia ora. Thank you for the report. I do find it interesting. I guess my question is there a possibility that these reports could include information on things that are actually within council's wheelhouse? Because when I read the reports, I'm thinking, what can we do? You know, what, and so it's interesting, but it doesn't help inform me as to the decisions I might make on a particular issue that we're working on. So does that make sense? I'm just wondering, is there a possibility that it could include things like businesses' perspective on transport, businesses' perspective on open spaces, because those are the things that we do, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. I think the report is a snapshot of the high-level engagement across those four: Business Outlook, Employment Outlook. So point well taken. I think what's not in the report but exists in the other facets of our work are examples of where then RF takes that relationship, and where an issue is brought up by a specific company, we look within council to see how can we address that. Transports come up quite often. Talent attractions come up quite often. In the PX portion, we name the companies who have those needs or feedback, and it's understood, you know, they talk quite openly, so that's why commercial sensitivities put it in PX.
Yeah.
I think probably best to chat about those specific examples there.
Yeah, yeah, okay, thank you.
I'll just add one more point to that. Is in the four key themes outlined in the report, growth enablers is the best one to capture all of that.
Yeah.
And I think Mike and I had that discussion early last year when we were framing up this report. And growth enablers is a good catch-all because not every business will have the same concerns and needs when it comes to council business. And we aim to capture it in that. And of course,
Okay.
the report aggregates and highlights the I guess, emerging trends and what most businesses are highlighting as a concern. And then anything specific, we action internally.
Okay.
I think on a related point, and Mike, you might want to talk about this, the work that Mike is now doing with the other economic development managers in the future-proof area is a really important lens around how we think in a boundaryless way, and potentially what that may mean over time is where is the right location for certain businesses to locate in that sub-regional metro context. But Mike, you might want to just elaborate on that, because that's a conversation.
Absolutely. I think our biggest strength is our sub-region. And so, for example, uses that might require a quite large land site that Hamilton City may not be able to accommodate, but they may already be existing and growing. And for them to cross boundaries that really they don't see, it's really important to have that broader conversation as they evolve as a business. How do we ensure that they stay within the sub-region, wherever their physical location may be? The economic impact comes largely to Hamilton City in terms of, the GDP and other economic impacts. So again, blurring those lines more formally and approaching it from a truly sub-regional view gives us the ability to, in effect, sell our wider region to all kinds of companies and talent.
Thank you.
Councillor Anna, before I go on to Councillor Maxine, does that allay your concerns, or are there? I'm not still certain we've given you what you want.
And I can follow up offline maybe.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just finding that I'm not sure why I'm reading all this information. I'm not quite sure how it informs my decision-making, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm just trying to draw some more direct connections.
Right.
So that I can make use of the information. So, but it may be too much of a conversation for here, so I can take it offline and
Look, I think it's helpful to have that conversation with Mike offline, because if we can do anything more, councillors, with the information to assist you in a governance role, then very keen to explore that.
yeah.
Because that was one of the whole purpose of trying to have this information.
I know, yeah.
Was to help elected members. And there was that broader narrative that if we fully understood the tensions and the comfort level of businesses, it would help us as elected members in making broader spending decisions, the rate increases we have, our debt, just all of that sort of holistic. But I glean that you want more, so maybe we make a note that you follow up with Mike to try to and see if we can find a couple of other key measures or KPIs that would help, that we could collate, that would then make the report meaningful for you.
Yeah, it might just be me, so it's okay. Yeah,
I find them helpful because it helps me understand. It gives me an insight into how businesses are feeling and what their challenges are.
Yeah.
And to the point is, I think we're in that business. We're not just, in my view, we're not just in the business of provisioning transport.
It's just an example.
It's much broader, but so I'll leave it for you to follow up with Mike to see if there's a couple of other things that we could try to get in the report that would give Anna a feeling of why she's reading it. Okay, Councillor Maxine.
Thank you, and thanks, Councillor Anna, for that inquiry. It really does help us all to think about how the work that's being done is relevant to the whole of our work. And thanks, Arif and Mike, for the level of engagement you're doing with our employers and finding out about what their issues. Some of that isn't necessarily the narrative that we're hearing in the wider country and across from the media about the level of comfort from businesses. So response to that would be good, but also in context with Hamilton around the employment. We hear of really severe unemployment statistics, and if you're one of those statistics, that's pretty serious stuff. And so I'd like to understand Hamilton's context in regard to the whole of the country around both of those things, if I could. Yeah.
I think, thank you, Councillor, for that question. I think Tiki would be best suited for that, but unfortunately she's not here. I can speak to specifically the businesses I've spoken to and what they're seeing, and the report captures that really well. As a whole, it is a national trend as well. The labour market is cooling off, but there's still a general skills shortage, and it varies sector to sector. I'm not sure if that will answer your question without further data, and I'm happy to follow up alongside Tiki on this. But
I'm also aware we've got online Mr. Greg Carson, who is obviously across all of these issues as well. So please continue, but Greg may want to jump in and try to help answer Maxine's question.
that might be helpful, yes. Yeah. And just further to the work that I do, and in general, businesses are cautious about hiring. They're cautious about growing their staff. So obviously that is in line with the unemployment trends and the data we're getting both locally and nationally as well. Unfortunately, I don't have the figures in front of me, but we're expecting those numbers to continue growing till the end of the year. And again, that's in line with what the businesses are saying on how they're feeling about it. Is when asked about when are you planning to start growing, or are you planning to start growing, they're looking at, we'll reassess later in the year, end of 2024 or the first quarter of 2025. So I hope that sort of gives you a little bit of an answer. I don't think that's the complete answer, but I wonder if Greg's wanted to add something to that.
So unemployment has trended up, but Hamilton is a bit more favourably than generally across the country, so we can feel a little bit good about that. And the other thing is that the number of people in the labour market is increasing, so that just means that the unemployment's going up, but also the number of people in the labour market are going up, so that's actually a little bit of silver lining as well. We get the labour market flooded by, for example, the government employee creation. So I think, relatively speaking, our level of unemployment, isn't that bad when we compare it to sort of how we generally think about the state of the economy. So yeah, that'd just be my quick comment.
Thank you.
There's a lot of really good information in the report itself. Okay. Mayor Paula.
Thank you. Just picking up on what's already been asked and answered. I think perhaps there's a chance, maybe is there a chance, question, to link the background data, which I do find very useful for the same reasons that you have articulated, understanding what's going on across the nation and internationally that's going to impact on our prices and our ability to deliver work and all of those good things. What I am interested in is how all of this, or what we know, links to what we're doing. That's the bit that's not so clear in this particular report. And I was going to ask you what that is, but I was going to be slightly provocative and ask you a question, because Mike knows I'm always about being reasonably aggressive around going out for the next thing. And there's some next things in the pipeline that are being a bit sluggish. So Tech in the Tron was that. What's next? What are you working on? How are you going out, knocking on those doors in Auckland North, wherever they are, and going, hi to Mike, come down to the Waikato, we've got it good here, what are we doing? I know it's not just our job, it's industrial owners, etc. But what are we doing now, apart from continuing to attract Tech in the Tron? What else could we do?
So I think
What are we doing?
Yeah, the future-proof work is probably the best example of that, whereas there is strength in going to those people, whether it's businesses or entire sectors, and saying, this is where you should be as you grow. Now, not many people are growing right now, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't and don't have plans to take that message directly to them. And actually, this point in time is a really useful time to get that story straight. So I think my personal view, that's a message best sold at a sub-regional level, because if I talk about the strengths of Hamilton, the story only gets better when I include the strengths of those people around us, whether it's, lifestyle choice is one example that comes up quite often. Logistics people love the idea of there are options for their operations. So this is a consistent point you've made since I've been here, really, and it's well taken. I think you're going to see between now and the end of the year a lot more tangible in terms of face time in front of people selling that message. So I would say stay tuned, but not for very long.
That's good news. One further follow-up question then, because there's a macro picture which you're talking about, selling our proposition, our growth, and I get all of that. I've been living and dreaming that for the last 5 years, that whole future-proof. But in terms of the going out and brokering directly within that scheme of things, and I know some mayors who are very good at this and some are not. Not saying I'm not, but who have the opportunity to literally go and go, hello, come on down. Do we get any chances, or is it outside of your resource limit for you to go and see what could it be a legitimate fit for us, and going, you know what, can we help you? We've got a team of businesses, land agents, whole bunch. Are we doing anything like that?
Yeah, that's squarely within our target and goal, and we feel best doing that in partnership with people like the development
Obviously in
community.
partnership,
So we are, I think, for us, really, we want to, rather than just have a meeting, we want to have a specific pitch and a specific opportunity. And so I do think, for me, the rest of this year that's a main priority and target of what we're going to do. And where there's opportunities to include yourself, Chair Ewan, and others, we absolutely want to do that.
I'll just add, Mayor, just on the engagement bit, this year has been a bit of a focus to look outwards. Mike and I both engaging with various parties in Auckland, and we've worked to start developing our relationships with our counterparts in those regions and further down south in Christchurch as well. So that again is fairly preliminary. It takes some time to build up those relationships, but we are working outside the region as well. Last year was a big focus to build relationships internally here, and now we are starting to look outside as well.
This has been really helpful for me because, and I think the GM has taken on board, and Mike, on this issue going forward, we're going to try to make sure that in every report, we're going to have a summary of how does this information relate to the work that elected members do, right? And if there isn't a coalition, if there isn't a connection, I think what I'm hearing from some elected members is you don't need it, right? And, this committee and the resources exists for you. So if we're not delivering, then we've got to alter the information until we do deliver. So if we're not delivering it, so we're going to take that away very clearly. I think the other thing I'm hearing from elected members is, and particularly the Mayor, tell us where the next growth is coming from, who are they, and are we pursuing them? I'm hearing that very clearly, and we're not showing that currently. And I take responsibility for that, right? This is my committee. I've set you off on the wrong track. We'll correct it, and we'll start getting the information you need. So at the next agenda, hopefully, you'll see the changes that you're asking for on that, all right? Go ahead.
Yeah, look, I think just to reiterate that, I see that the information is valuable. It's just there's one extra step in our reports, which I think will just bring it together. And I think that our role in economic development is one part of a much wider ecosystem. So it is not our sole job to be attracting business, but it's our job to be part of that part of that system, part of that network, and to create the conditions for the right type of businesses to be in Hamilton. I think that last word is quite important. As we expand and grow, and we're limited footprint and land area, the right type of businesses in Hamilton and that wider sub-regional lens is becoming important, because there may be certain businesses which we desperately want in this area, but they probably shouldn't be located in Hamilton, but they could be located in that periphery. So that future-proof lens is important. So take that all on board, and we'll further refine this this information.
Yeah, we'll have some meaningful discussions, but I hear you, colleagues. Okay, the next attachment I have is attachment 2, soda and, no? I'm sorry?
We're going through each section.
Yeah, we're going through each section. Yeah, sorry. Did I? No.
I'd probably not go to the attachments. I'd probably just take the themed area.
Sure.
So
you're saying that attachment 2 does not correlate with the next item?
well, attachment 2 was sort of covered in that first economic update. So,
All right.
Mike, if there's anything more in that economic area, what we could do, Councillor Ewan, is while Mike is there, just jump to the last section, the economic update, which covers also Tiki's area. So,
Yep, so I just have some notes from Tiki that I'll read, and then, as mentioned, I think Greg might still be online if there's specific questions about her report. So,
this relates to paragraph 59 of the report onwards.
correct. So New Zealand's economy is plodding along with very limited growth. I think we all realize that, if any. But for Hamilton, it has at least been positive. Inflation's coming down, but domestic non-tradable inflation is still too high. In Tiki's opinion, so while the Reserve Bank will be pleased with kind of the overall direction of movement, she'd expect them to remain cautious about cutting rates too soon. The market, as I'm sure you've seen on the news, is tipped to call for cuts in August, but again, Tiki's view is it's questionable whether the balance is swung enough for them to do that. So banks are being broadly optimistic that cuts might come, but it would be a huge pivot if they did. You know, I think the caution in the Reserve Bank's approach is something that Tiki mentioned over and over again. So it will be seen. I think she and others would be surprised if anything happened, but they could. Consenting is falling heavily here in Hamilton as well as across the country, and there's just not enough movement in house prices to give confidence for many developers to proceed. That said, some new builds that were already in the pipeline and completed, both here and in other cities that haven't sold, are becoming rentals, which, you know, silver lining is helping that rental shortage given our population growth. So that is my best impression of Tiki. I fall very short of that, but as said, Greg's online and is across this as our leader.
Is there any questions? Okay, Councillor Anna.
Quickly, I guess with an affordable housing hat on, and I read about the comments in the report about house prices being flat as a negative indicator of economic well-being. I guess what I'm wondering is, could there be some more nuance in the way that we report on housing as an indicator of economic well-being? Because clearly affordable housing is also good for economic well-being. So that's just a question, because when I read that, I feel confused and frustrated, I suppose. So yeah, just asking about that. Yeah, thanks.
Councillor, take that on board. I
Yep.
guess the real, I mean, it's a really interesting challenge you pose, because on one hand, I absolutely agree with you. House prices, you know, as they are at the moment, is helping affordability. On the other hand, house prices are also currently stopping any development or limiting any development because the economics aren't there. So it is a really, really interesting conundrum.
Yeah, so I just want asking if there could be a bit more of
Yep.
a reflection of that conundrum,
Take that on
so
board.
that we all understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I guess the third limb that I would have added is as a society, New Zealand's a bit of an outlier globally in the sense that we place our value of our asset based on our houses, right?
Yes, yep.
And so when the housing market's going up, we feel good. And it's just a fact.
Some of us, yeah.
Well, yeah, 98%. Where other countries, obviously, they invest differently. And when houses are static, the economy feels less good. I mean, this is fact. I accept that it's not your view of the world, and it's not how.
No,
and
it's not that, Ewan. It's just I just need a little bit more nuance in the reporting. That's all. I don't think it's how I see the world. It's just house prices being flat is good for some people, and you're right that for others it might be yes. There is a whole segment of our community that is outside that picture. So that's all I'm asking for.
Right.
And again,
So-
it might be just something that we take
Sure.
offline and discuss more.
But if that's the case, if house prices are flat and there is no development, so for a period of time, if you've got cash and you're buying, you can buy slightly more affordably. But that's very short-lived if there are no new houses
in
to the
debate
market.
or-
No, I'm just
wondering.
yeah. Colleagues, I'm not trying to be confrontational. You're asking questions of staff. I'm now trying to understand how we can better summarise a report for the nuance that you're looking for. And I think I've heard you say you would like a broader narrative that says, although the traditional measure is when housing price increase is low, the housing market's flat, you'd like a line that says, although for some market segment this means access, and then we just need to add the extra broader line about though developers are less likely to build more inventory, and what are the consequences to that? So
I think I'll take a wild guess and assume that Tiki knows exactly what you mean and can address it very easily.
Totally well.
Look, I've noted it, Councillor
you,
and
Mike.
Chair, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I think I guess if Tiki was here, what she would probably say is the best thing for the economy is a steady, gradual increase in prices, not the radical change that we've seen, which has distorted everything. So, but absolutely understand the balance that's needed. So,
Thank you.
next area we're going to cover is H3.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be reasonably quick. Essentially, the H3 operation has had an outstanding year just past with around $1 million surplus revenue above our original projections. So it's been a good year from H3 point of view. If I talk about the zoo, we've had a great lift in the attendance numbers at the zoo, which have been very steady and encouraging, but that operation has been challenged by ongoing costs, as has the museum to an extent, although prior to closing the museum a few weeks ago, once again we had good visitation to the museum, which was an encouraging lift. And I can say the same about the gardens. Once again, faced some challenges with increased costs that we're all facing out there, but really good visitation numbers, good utilisation. The budget for the gardens, however, had originally included revenue from the gate take for the themed gardens, because the original anticipation was that it would start much sooner than it actually is. So it was very difficult to achieve its revenue, although it did find some benefit in the zoo helping to replace lost revenue at the gardens. So I'm talking to you not about just H3, but about all of my group here, which we now refer to as the destinations group, or all of the hard operations in my group, I should say. You were just talking about labour before and the labour market, and I would add a comment from our perspective. Obviously, we've been going through some fairly painful retrenchment, but we've still had to be in the market recruiting for certain roles. We've actually experienced a lift in the number of applications for jobs. For a while there, a year ago, we were struggling to get a good number of people applying for jobs, but that has lifted significantly for any vacancies. The bad side, or the downside, however, is the calibre of people has not lifted. So we're still struggling to actually get people with the right aptitude or the right skills. And that's not necessarily pre-training skills, but just people that would be a fit. So we are still challenged, despite the lift in availability of number of people applying for jobs. We still need to get the right aptitude coming through in those applications. So it's still a bit of a challenge. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Maxine.
Thank you for those last comments. It does raise a question with me in terms of the skills and aptitude that you're looking for. Do council do any work with training organisations or schools in order to be able to express what we're looking for and what we need for them to develop during their training years?
Certainly in the areas that I'm involved with, we have, yes, from time to time, but that's been a little bit on and off. We've actually, as you probably recall, we did have what we called a graduate trainee program, where we would bring in new entrants from school levels or university levels. However, that has been put on hold because of the budget constraints, so we don't have that anymore. For some of the specific trade skills, however, like our tech service people that do the sound and light, or our turf people who look after the grounds at FMG and Seddon Park, we are working with one of the high schools very closely, and we have a program where young adults come out of the schools and they do work experience with us, and then we're finding quite often they end up joining us in full-time employment out of that. So yes, we do in some parts, not in others.
And do the fact that we offer the living wage, is that a positive thing for council in terms of being able to attract staff?
I don't, look, I can't answer that question from direct knowledge as to whether or not it is.
Thank you. I do have one final question. It was just with regard to the Hamilton Gardens Pass, and just is there any feedback at this point, this early stage of uptake of that?
Yes, well, we did the briefing the other day at the information centre session, and we're about to launch the ability for Hamiltonians to pre-register to get their pass. There is a lot of social media discussion going on out there. There is a lot of people who are unhappy with the charge because they're not used to it. And there are a lot of people that come through on the social media that actually sort of visit the argument with those people that are unhappy and say, hang on a minute,
yeah, I've seen a bit
what
of that.
about this? You've got to think about whatever. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I suspect we will get more blowback and disappointment as the charges actually come to fruition and people actually experience it directly, especially for those people who are our close neighbours. And they're just over the border, but we will work through that.
And I understand that passes aren't able to be confirmed until mid-September. Is there any opportunity for us to revisit that date and bring it early?
Well, we can get passes, as I say, pre-application for passes will be happening shortly, I think later this week or early next week. That's underway, so the passes will then be valid. People once they pre-register, they need to pick up the pass, but of course they won't be usable until the 18th of September in any case.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jeff.
Thanks. Mr Chair, is it appropriate for me to ask a question about the zoo? There's a report here on it.
Yes. Yeah, that's...
Thanks, sure. The report here mentions the remarkable growth at the zoo. There's nothing here about the cafe and how the cafe is faring, and I'm just interested to know that. How's it doing?
Yeah, look, the cafes are doing very well, actually. One of the, and it's a good point for you to raise, we don't actually report on the cafe at the zoo or the gardens in terms of their performance. The zoo at the cafe, the cafe at the zoo, we've been very happy with their performance. One of the issues we have, it's become a bit like the Gardens, it's become a destination cafe, and tends to take up, the patrons tend to take up the car parks but not necessarily go into the zoo itself. So that's good on one part but not so good on the other, and adds a bit of pressure. But at this stage we're sort of very happy with how the cafe is performing, but I think it's a good point you raise. Hamilton Gardens Cafe is just performing outstanding. I mean, the destination of the Gardens itself is just huge for a cafe to be there, so it's doing very well.
Thank you. Just a further question on that. In terms of the cafe at the zoo, and I agree it's really popular, and in fact in regard to the destination cafe aspect that you mentioned, speaking as a Western Heights, Grandview Heights resident, there's quite a bit of buzz about the place, about actually at last having a cafe bar, well, another cafe bar in the area. And is there possibly going to be any thought to extending its hours, as a Friday night, Saturday night type venue?
At this stage, no, but obviously it would be a conversation for us to have with the operators of that cafe if they wanted to extend to that.
Yeah. I mean, it could be in their interests.
It may be. I'm not aware that they have that on their radar and all, but I might check that out for you. It's just a question of how that fits in with the rest of the zoo operation.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Southgate.
Oh, that was a very good question, so I've almost lost my approach here. In terms of, just on that, and then I'll come to my big approach, which is event attraction. Just on that, the ability to get revenue is really useful. Is there anything else we've been identified? Because I remember when Angela and I put up the idea that we could have a two-sided cafe at the zoo, and it was kind of laughed out of shop at that time, but it took, after a bit of percolation, it came right. And that whole having the right access, is there anything else? Could we have, like, on Claudelands Park, given that we have one of the busiest playgrounds there, could we not have a little kiosk there? And if we could, would it have to be Montana at this stage, or the wider grounds not included in that context?
I guess we haven't seen ourselves as being in the business of creating a new cafe at a place like Claudelands. There are some that are close by. I have often entertained the view, and I've said so around this table from time to time, that the lower level of the grandstand would make a fantastic cafe for an operator to actually occupy that and put in quite a large cafe, obviously with outdoor seating and so forth, especially with the Magic Park just on the other side of the car park. So that has been on our radar from time to time, and we would always entertain that as an option for that location.
I know also Angela had a thought about Piranha Park as another... Piranha Park? Memorial Park. Yeah. No, I'm just saying that because clearly there's value. What I wanted to talk about, though, is H3 in the broader sense. Times are tough, and what are we seeing, and what are we doing, or what are we seeing, what do we expect to do, or what are we doing about attracting those major events? Good news that we've got hotels on the horizon, but they're not built yet. But what are we doing about the next 3-4 years of really big things coming to Claudelands?
Well, we're doing what we've always done. And when we are out there in our business development zone, the team are usually working on an 18 to 24 month and beyond horizon. We recently had a major event at Claudelands with around 1,700 people in total over a week. And we had a big evening where the private company probably spent around $700,000 or $800,000 on one night. Now, that actually came to us probably 2.5, 3 years ago. And so what I'm signalling to you is that we just continue to work, with a long-term horizon with as many people as we can. The market itself out there at the moment is interesting. We have a very strong forward book. Our July trading at Claudelands, which has just ceased, actually blew us out of the water a little bit. We couldn't believe how strong the business has remained, especially when we've seen other conferencing destinations around the country start to slow up a little bit. But that's probably reflected that we haven't had quite the same customer base, less reliant on central government type of activity, and so on. And also just the nature of the beast, I suppose, the location that we have, which is a bit different to most other large precincts of that type around the country. And what we are seeing, though, is a change. The business events and conferencing and functions is getting much, much stronger. The big events like the things like the FIFAs and everything else just is not coming to New Zealand anymore, or not in the foreseeable future. The events like large touring acts that you would see in the arena, once again, unless it's a Taylor Swift type event that actually requires a stadium that has 40 to 80,000 people on board, they're just not coming to New Zealand. So that is getting much tougher for us. And even Australia, usually we're an add-on to an Australia tour, and so the market is a bit harder there, but we continue to work pretty hard on that. Having said that, I am hoping to have a little bit of a few minutes with you in the PX session, where I do actually want to talk to you about a major event opportunity that is coming our way. I just please be assured we are not slowing down in the pursuit of getting new business and new events coming to us.
Thank you for that. I don't have any other questions. I know, Blair, the final theme is growth, and you just wanted to cover a couple of parts.
Absolutely. So I just have in the room Lehigh and Sonia on behalf of the growth programs, which is covered in the report. So me, Paula, asked a question earlier around our activities in Rotakari and Ruakura. So just opportunity if councillors have any questions for Sonia or Lehigh on the growth programs update, which is covered from paragraph 31 in the report onwards.
Colleagues, any questions on that part? Councillor Serra. Lehigh and Sonia, feel free to come on down. First of all, Lehigh, we're going to be very sad to see you go, while I remember.
Thank you.
Sonia, you're not leaving us anytime soon. That's great.
Thank you, Chair. I recall, sorry, this did cover also the central city as well, the growth area. So thank you. Lehigh, I just had a question around central city. To what extent is, I guess, the slowdown in council investment in streetscape work, say, for example, Alexandra Street, is it impacting on developers and their, I guess, intentions around development? Just keen to understand what you're hearing.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably one of a raft of things, obviously topics covered already in this hui, that is kind of making developers not necessarily reconsider, but push pause, slow things down. We do have a really good insight into the various I guess, development intentions right across the central city to 2035. And developers are, just kind of pushing pause, watching the market. But absolutely, you know, we are hearing, especially as developers do build, what is council bringing to the table in terms of upgrading the streetscape around their developments and things. For others, if the streetscape, for example, you mentioned Alexandra Street, does look a bit rough or untidy, then it does impact on the ability to have tenants into new developments or refurbishments as well. So there is an impact, but it is one of many.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Colleagues, I have no other questions on the board. That is all the items under item number 9. It's been moved, it's been seconded. Any debate? You don't need to apologise at all. I've got Councillor Hutt first.
I just couldn't turn this comment into a question, so I saved it for debate. But I wanted to... But I just wanted to thank Mike for his work because I stole lots of it for an article I wrote recently for the North and South magazine, and so a lot of those stats and figures were really useful for us, for myself. But I did also want to acknowledge the comment about Shadow Day for Women in Technology, because in a different lifetime, actually 5 years ago, I was taking on young women during Shadow Day to come work with me where I was working in technology. So it's really lovely to actually hear that that's still happening. Quite heartening. But yeah, I did also want to just acknowledge Councillor Anna's comments as well. I do think that there is a piece of work in terms of tying some of the things that are really interesting, but tying it into our bigger workload, because my partner did say to me last night, oh, so you've read the agenda, was it just 100 pages? And I said, no, it was 285. So I do think that, you know, being explicit about how things tie into our bigger workload is actually really important.
Excellent. Mayor Paula?
Thank you very much, and congratulations on that. It's always good to see some thought leadership. My main comment is around how tenacious was we. First of all, thanks to all the staff, because I know they are working very hard and very busy. It's a very busy arena. All the economic data aside, which tells us not a glum picture, an optimistic, but still a tricky time to navigate. My interest has always been, as was mentioned, I bring it up quite often, is how we broker new business to our place. And I know there's some irons in the fire. I'm not going to name any, but there's some irons in the fire that, in my opinion, should have landed by now and are taking. There's lots of reasons that barriers, but we've got to break down barriers so that that business can come and it'll be a great story when it finally does get here. There are other ones where I have seen mayors literally go up to Auckland from all sorts of South Island, from all over the place, not just mayors, with a team, with a business broker team. And that's how the national, what do you call it, triathlon series is no longer in Auckland. It is in Taupo. It's exactly how it happened. He went up the road, knocked on the door of Triathlon New Zealand, said, have I got a proposition for you? Live, work, play, and run your event right here in the heart of Taupo. So I'm always looking for those rich opportunities. I just want to lay down the challenge. I think that's what we should be together, finding that next thing. And I really, really want to understand within this year, through you, Ewan, and your committee and so on, what's the next thing that you need me to confidently, boldly go after on our behalf? Because we are in competition with other parts of the country, no matter how fast growing we are, however good our macro story is across the top. Yep, we've got all of that, but we are still in competition and we need to remember that.
Councillor Jeff.
Look, I just on the Central City transformation stuff on page 118, that's I'm very happy that that's part of my responsibility as Sarah's deputy, and I just want to touch on it because we are coming back to it at our strategic growth meeting in a couple of weeks' time. But there are two issues I want to raise. One is that you'll remember that there was a sum of money put aside in the LTP to spruce up the Central City, and so we have started some discussions on that with HCBA, and the growth team did a little bit of a tour last week just to have a look at that as well. And so we will be coming back. You'll be getting some visibility over that really soon, and we'll be coming back in a couple of weeks to the growth with a kind of course of direction for you to endorse, hopefully. And the second part of that is just flagging that it's mentioned here that in coming years we've got significant work from the IAF, 150 million, to prepare the infrastructure for another 4,000 homes over the next decade. And while that's great news, it will also likely involve some sort of prolonged disruption in the Central City over that time. And so we're sort of starting the thinking process now of how we prepare for that and how we front foot that. And there'll be more touch points for councillors and mayor to talk about that in coming months once we've got a better idea of the schedule that will be followed for that work. And lastly, the Central City manager Lehigh is leaving on August the 23rd, and so that's before our growth meeting. I really just wanted to thank him and pay tribute to him. He's a top operator and we'll miss him, and thank him very much for what he's done. Thanks,
No, and I've got Councillor Sarah and I've got Councillor Mark. I'm going to jump in just because I know Mayor Paul needs to leave, and I just want to comment on a couple of things raised. Colleagues, I want to highlight, I guess, page 120 of this report, section 59, where we have attached the annual economic report. And that's been collated by Tiki and the broader team. And I really encourage you to read it. It is an informative, well-structured narrative. And the reason I wanted to highlight that, the reason we have all of this capacity and stuff to produce this sort of information is to actually try to help answer some of the questions you might have. And you may turn your mind to say, so where's the next biggest opportunity? Why haven't we landed that? Where are the areas? And the reason we have spent so much time on these reports is to try to help you understand the economic conditions of which we're trading in and when things are likely to improve. And once we grasp that, it will help you understand the likely time frame of when we're likely to land the next big thing. If you look at the hotels we've been working on them for years, and now we have 2 that are about to come together worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But that didn't succeed overnight. It's come from years of hard work, and it's a trend of the economy. Now, I know Sean is working as hard as his team to get more events, and I know that he is out there knocking on doors. But here's some of the things. There are some jurisdictions in New Zealand who are taking funds and are using funds to induce events. Now, if we want to be in that business, we need to fund staff to go off and do that type of stuff. So I just want to highlight that the economic development team, in the broader sense, is out there knocking on doors, but this is, it takes time, and the broader economic situation is not making it particularly easy currently. Having said that, we have delivered, I think, a couple of hotels, and that's great news. So, Councillor Mark.
Thanks, thanks, Chair. You said a couple of things that I was going to touch on as well, so I won't add much more other than when I studied back in many years ago, back at university, seems like an eternity ago now, our marketing lecturer said to us, a sausage sizzle is only as good as the sizzle. You've got to have the sausages, but people are coming along to buy the sizzle. And I think that we have a similar situation here. And, you know, in the defence of our fantastic team who form part of growth and economic development, you know, the other thing the lecturer said to us was you can't sell a secret. Now, we need funds, as you quite rightly point out, to be able to operate in that space if we're going to attract more events. And look, these events cuts across not only sports, but this conversation is going to revolve around cultural events as well in the future, because we want lots of people to come to Hamilton, sporting or cultural, doesn't matter. If they come here and they spend their money here, we know what the circular economy looks like, and it will, feed off into very positive outcomes for the city. So my key points are sausage sizzle, and you can't sell a secret.
Right, thank you for that. You're making us hungry. Councillor Sarah, you're on the list. I'll give you the opportunity.
Deciding whether or not to prolong our meetings, but I will just firstly thanks, Councillor Jeff, for your words around the Central City and Lehigh. I just wanted to echo that as well. I was very sad to hear that you're leaving, but wish you all the best as well, and thank you for the work that you've done. And secondly, I just wanted to touch on Ruakura. Earlier on, it's noted as a priority within the KPI sheet, and it's also talked about here, and I think there's an opportunity coming up for us to actually try and really supercharge things in Ruakura, so look forward to further discussions there. Thanks.
Colleagues, so what I thought was going to be a relatively brief session on, but Anna had asked me a few days ago, are we going to make sure there's going to be lots of time for questions? And there's certainly been lots of time for questions. So item 9, it's been moved and seconded. We've had the debate. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. We're now on to item 10. I know Mayor Paul is having to leave. I think, Sarah, you're about to... I am here all day. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your dedication. Now we're getting into some exciting stuff, although it gets more exciting in PX. Item 10, Strategic Property Update. Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm happy to take this report as read with the proviso of 2 verbal updates. The first is regarding the Opoia Park car park ground penetrating radar work. We have that work scheduled for the weekend of the 24th and the 25th of August. Obviously, that's a weekend chosen so that we minimise the impact on commuter parkers. And the aim is obviously to have that work completed in time for presentation on the 14th of September at a Ngāti Wairere meeting at Hukanui Marae. So that's in train. The second item that I just wish to draw to your attention is the 340 Tristram Street, the bridge housing matter. We are very close to resolving the tripartite funding agreement between ourselves, Bridge and Westpac as principal funder, and my expectation is that we will be able to meet our September deadline and bring that forward to the MEF advisory group when they meet on the 20th of September for final signature. Happy to take any questions.
Now, before we go to questions, I'm feeling somewhat left out because there's clearly some very good exchanges going between Sarah and multiple other parties, because I'm seeing smiles and giggles. And
I'm sorry, I was trying to find a picture of a GIF of a sausage sizzle for Councillor Mark Donovan, but it didn't work out.
Okay.
So, sorry, that
Can
was
we
my
move
own
on
private.
from? Can we move
that
on
was
from
my
sausages,
private.
please? Can we move on, Mark? You are now banned from mentioning sausages in this meeting. Okay, colleagues. So there's some really good media stuff here. Any questions for Nicholas? Councillor Maxine.
I too didn't get the sausage sizzle gif. However, I won't feel left out. Thanks, Nicholas. My recall from the hui with Ngāti Wairere on Opoia Pā was that we would also investigate some of the land on the other side of the bridge. Is that the intention for the 23rd and 24th?
Yes, so we're doing the entire area that is regarded as Opoia Pā, which of course is in 2 sections divided by the road and railway line. It's what is currently Jesmond Park, and I believe there's a paper coming forward which will rename or suggest renaming that park.
Cool.
And also the Opoia Pā car park, so it's the whole shebang.
Wonderful, thank you. And then the other was with regard to, I think, the Bridge Trust tripartite arrangement in terms of my understanding around the, about my understanding around what the security is. I wonder if you could just explain that a little bit further. in terms of that
Yes,
investment we're
so
proposing?
effectively, the principal funder, Westpac, will take first mortgage security over the site, and there will be an adjoining agreement, because you can only have one party listed on the certificate of title in the first mortgage security arrangements. There will be an adjoining agreement that ties us as secondary funder into that arrangement. So those are apparently unusual, but not completely unusual funding arrangements, and Tompkins Wake are satisfied that secures our investment.
And so is that a first priority arrangement for Westpac, or more
Yes,
a pari passu kind of arrangement?
It's a first priority mortgage for Westpac.
Okay, thank you. And it's quite clear that our investment then is secure enough in your mind?
Yes, it is, yes. But, I mean, we'll obviously bring that loan funding agreement back to the MEF advisory group in September, as I say, ideally, for signature and approval. And we'll have confirmation from our lawyers that is, the security arrangements are sufficient.
All right, thank you. In your hands then.
Councillor Anna.
Yeah, kia ora, Nicholas. So this is just a question, and it's a little bit of a bigger question, but I think it's important. In terms of the MEF, one of the puzzlements that some of us have is around the processes of finding out about MEF and therefore subsequently applying, or whatever process might follow. Can you just explain to me how you understand the process of that? For people being able to engage with the MEF and find out about it?
Yes, so any party can apply to the MEF with a funding proposal or any other form of proposal, because of course the MEF isn't just made up of the cash, it also includes assets such as land and buildings, but effectively can apply to the MEF for any proposal. And that proposal is then evaluated on the basis of return, benefit, security, all the normal evaluation criteria. In terms of advertising the opportunity, we don't go out and promote it as such, other than when opportunities are taken up. There's obviously a lot of press around that. And there's also pages on the council's website around the MEF and what parties can do and what the MEF's role is. So that's really all I can say on that one.
Yeah, I guess. I guess I would just like more understanding or greater transparency somehow around the MEF, because I do think. I mean, it's not really a question, but. Yeah, I do think there's probably quite a few people who don't know about it. So I guess I'm just asking, is there a way that we could be more, not advertising, but making sure that potentially interested people know about it? I'm not quite sure, but it's a question, and that has come up amongst elected members, and just wanting to make sure our community understands.
You feel the MEF could be more overt in what it does to ensure a wider spectrum of people are aware of it?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And we can bring those thoughts back to the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
And and we can bring that, I'm sure Councillor Maxine will follow up, we can bring that back to the next MEF discussion.
Sure. Great, thank you.
Sausage sizzle? There's a fine. Okay. So we'll see you again in PX, obviously, Nicholas.
He's got a policy coming up.
In fact, we'll see you in the next item. So, colleagues, turning our mind to page 161, we're simply receiving the report. We've had questions. I've moved it, seconded by Councillor Mark. Any debate? I'll quickly, as I guess the mover simply say, Nicholas, thanks for all the work you're doing in the strategic property area. We have many irons in the fire. I think the MEF is getting very close to being able to complete its first task, which is the affordable housing project, which I think some in the chamber will be very excited. It hasn't been easy, not helped by our friends in central government who changed their mind over funding, and it has meant the trust has had to go out and find additional funding, and it looks like Westpac has come to the party, but it's complex. The finer details are being worked out by the very people who are qualified to do that. We have already resolved that we're in the business of trying to make this transaction happen. We set a deadline, that is September, and so I'm hoping that that will be completed, and we'll have our first project off the taxi rank. We've got two others that are also, one we're going to talk about soon, and then another one that's in the pipeline. So that will be very encouraging. So that was the only debate I had. Right, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. Sarah, you're still smiling at every opportunity.
It's funny, it's just lingering.
Lingering? What did I say? Oh, the sausage thing.
No, it's still the same.
It's still the same thing. Okay, excellent. Item 11.
I'll practice my poker face.
Excellent. So, we have Blair. I'm going to let you...
Yes, I can bring everyone back to ground with a conversation on the policy on the remuneration appointment of CCO members. So, councillors, very minor changes to the policy, largely to reflect the ownership changes in our CCOs, and that we've sold our interests in Waikato Innovation Growth in New Zealand Food. The rest of the policy is largely as it has been in place, and most practically is utilised in the director appointment process of both the airport and CoLab, but very happy to take any questions.
Colleagues, you'll find this on page 168. I've moved it, seconded by Councillor Muku. Any questions? Councillor Mark.
Yeah, there's quite a, thanks Chair, Ewan, there's quite a strong point made there around elected members not being able to take up board positions. Is it written in their constitution? I did read, I was going over the reading last night and I can't remember if it was in their constitution or it was just a sort of a unwritten mandate of sorts.
General manager.
So our policy, I'm referring to page...
I can't remember what page it was on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to...
170, I think.
Page 171.
171,
171,
yep.
clause 3.
Yeah, there it is.
3.2.
Yep.
It's essentially saying that councillors only in exceptional circumstances shall be appointed to the boards. It's not excluding it altogether.
That was going to be my question, was what's an example of an exceptional circumstance?
Well, look, I guess in the case of the airport company, is independent directors, and I think that's determined by the Constitution. So the Constitution in that case overrides the policy.
Yeah.
In the case of CoLab, the directors of CoLab are actually the chief executives.
Yes.
So there are exceptional circumstances where it's appropriate.
Okay. Right. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Councillor Sarah, for including me in the communication. Right, no further questions. It's been moved and it's been seconded. I have no debate. Any other debate? No debate? All those in favour say aye. Those against, the ayes have it. We're ploughing along, colleagues. Item 12, policy review, freehold council and endowment land. Nicholas, we're in your hands.
This is the three-yearly review of a long-standing policy that seeks to incentivise lessees of council-owned domain and endowment land to purchase the freehold interest, buy us out effectively. And the reason for that is We get a very, very low return on these leases. Anytime we sell one and put the money on deposit, we're picking up at least 2 or 3%. So financially better. They hold no strategic value for us. This policy was quite extensively reviewed 3 years ago. And the only change we're suggesting this time round is really to remove the lessee's ability to challenge the valuation that we impose once they seek to freehold. And that's really just to take into account the fact that, generally speaking, it's highly advantageous to a lessee to freehold these properties, and the council really needs to maximise its ability to leverage its income from sale of the freehold. Other than that, happy to take any questions.
Councillor Sarah.
I was just, I guess, interested whether there were particular circumstances which kind of gave rise to us making these revisions to the policy.
No, there aren't any particular circumstances. I mean, this policy has sort of been tweaked and changed and modified over the years as time progresses. We're down to the very, very last few of these leases now, and it's really just a question of maximising our return.
Yeah. Thank you.
I've got no other questions. This motion is moved by Councillor Sarah. Thank you. Moved by yourself. Seconded by Councillor Maxine. I'll open it up for debate.
Thank you, as usual, to Nicholas for your excellent work. Thank you.
No further debate. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Moving on now to item 13. We're making great progress, colleagues. Right. Sean, Event Sponsorship Fund.
Thank you, Chair. This is a out-of-sequence sponsorship proposal that we're putting forward to you from the Event Sponsorship Fund. You may recall at the last meeting of this committee, you approved the year's funding quota. We had a outcome where we were sort of still had around $100,000 unbudgeted. We've since received a late application from the Z Manu World Champs. I'm hoping if you've had a look at the paper, you'll find it fairly self-explanatory. They're seeking support from us. Our recommendation is a $12,000 sponsorship from council. And the attachments sort of provide the sort of dynamics of the event. Last year, this event was held in Hamilton very successfully. It wasn't granted any funds through the Events Sponsorship Fund at the time. However, we did manage to support them in kind and with other arrangements to encourage them to be here. But this time around, we feel it's warranted that we give them some cash to really help it along its way. Happy to take questions.
Colleagues, any questions? Excellent. Councillor Maxine.
Thank you. I was having a look through their budget projections, and on page 100 or 252, I didn't see a budget line in their revenue for entry or gate kind of takings. Is that because the pool takes that entry, or is it shared revenue with the fund, with the organisation rather? They had listed out all of their sponsors, but hadn't projected any kind of takings, the gate.
Look, this is terrible, but I can't answer that question for you.
Yeah, okay.
I have a suspicion that it's free admission for the championship events that they have, but I would need to double check that.
Okay. I thought I saw somewhere that there was going to be a gate entry for adults and kids. Is that maybe for the jumpers?
Yeah, look, I need to check that.
Okay, thank you. And you can get back to me with that. Be fine.
I'll probably help with the answer. So those ones who entered paid an entry fee.
Yeah.
But if spectators and their families, they still had to pay the entry because I was a spectator.
Okay. Thank you.
I was thinking about entering.
I'm about to go to, sorry colleagues, I'm about to go to Councillor Jeff, but before I do, I wonder, Councillor Muku, whether or not you're interested in moving this and whether you would like your new colleague to second. Could you give that some thought? Excellent. So the item is now on the table, moved by Councillor Muku and Councillor Huata. Councillor Jeff.
Thanks, Chair Ewan. Sean, just on the, we talk about bed nights for all events, and I see we've got 1,050 bed nights estimated for this one on page 195. And was that borne out by the last time we had the event? Was it?
It was the estimate that was provided by the promoter. We didn't have any specific measures that we could put in place as to say how many people were wherever, but we had to rely on the promoter's estimates.
So do we, what rigour goes into checking that after the events? Like, is there, how do we, you know, just generally across the board, if someone says 1,000 bed nights, 500 bed nights,
yeah,
what rigour goes into that generally with all events?
Every event operator that gets sponsorship from us provides us with a report at the end, and you see that when that comes through. And they provide us, once again, they provide us with their estimates of what they've achieved against their proposal and targets, and once again we are reliant on their estimate of what room nights they believe were achieved from that. We don't have any mechanism whereby we can measure specific events on a blanket basis across the city in terms of what happens here. We need to rely on best estimates.
Yeah. But your feeling from when the event was held here was that it was a
very
pumping
successful.
event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Sean, it might be difficult to answer, but I was just interested in what other events with there's a remaining 88,000. What other events might we expect come through?
Ordinarily, we wouldn't expect any more events to come through, but having said that, you know, people always do pop up, so we don't know. But I'd like to speak to you about that in PX.
I've got Councillor Andrew and then Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Chair Ewan. Sean, I'm looking at page 253. So the competition is expecting to make a profit of $5,200, regardless of us putting money in. So are we just effectively giving them another $12,000 profit? Is that appropriate?
That is not an unusual situation for a lot of these events when they come to different cities, and it's once again it's a part of whether the city actually wants to purchase the benefits through the sponsorship that the event would generate. The other thing we would have to say is that events really need to budget a surplus, because there's always a contingency issue, and these things are quite high risk for the operators. Plus, they also need to have an ability to earn some working capital for the events the next year as well. So it is quite common.
Thank you.
Mark.
Ewan, I have one question, more just for clarification. What makes it world champs? Is it yeah? Well, are there international bombers coming?
No, I don't. I'm not sure that there are international bombers or not, but it is part of a circuit worldwide.
Oh, it is. Okay. All right. Cool. It just took me back to the Americans and their World Baseball League and World Series, and hey, I'm all for beating our chests and saying, hey, we're great.
But in that case, it is the world.
Oh, good. Okay. World domination.
The motion in front of us has been moved by Councillor Muku, seconded by Councillor Huata. Councillor Muku.
I've got nothing to argue with at this stage, but if others want to debate, I'll reserve my right to reply.
Understood. Right.
I was really pleased to see this recommendation come through and happy to support it. And I look forward to coming to watch Councillor Muku this time around. Please send us an invite. Thanks.
Councillor Moko.
Equally pleased to see this. Sean, thank you. I think this ties into some of what Mike and his report was leaning into in terms of what type of events might we attract to our city. This is one of those. This is an event that is largely attended by many of our Māori Pacific Island community, and so it's there where you'll see them putting out their manus. It's the only event in the world that has a manu bombing event, and so that's why it's called the World Champs. And so thank you, Sean. I think the expenditure from our council is a great investment. I do want to lean into the comments made by my fellow councillor, Councillor Jeff. It would be good for us to get a sense around how we measure bed nights. It's been one of those things that I've always wanted to know for any sponsorship we give. With more beds coming into the city, I think we can anticipate to see probably greater numbers, hopefully. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Councillor Hutt.
Very similar to Councillor Moko, I was also very excited to see this and very pleased that we're funding it. I'm not sure if our council's Christmas party has been organised yet, but I do think that there would be a lot of gravitas should we hold a manu contest ourselves. Just a suggestion.
Awesome idea.
I'm not great at heights, so I have immense respect for those who can, but I do think that there is something really special about us funding this and holding it, and I do think that we should encourage as much participation as possible, even if that includes ourselves.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'm going to enter the debate and say this is something I think we should be sponsoring. This is uniquely Kiwi, and it's uniquely, I think, Hamilton. I mean, I love walking along by the river and seeing people out there jumping off everything from trees to our decks, having wonderful fun. You know, when you start to realise that it's going to be held in one of our facilities at the pool, you know, this is what economic development and trying to support these events are all about. And so it's a $12,000 investment, and I think it will pay significant dividends. I look forward to the report that comes at the end of it. And I'm putting down the challenge, Louise. I would happily compete for a bombing competition of all councillors. So I'm not afraid of height, so I'm happy to take it off any height. Within the confounds of what's legal and what's within our facilities. You can't put a crane and ask me to jump off it, but I would definitely participate. So there's a challenge. Right, it's on the table, colleagues.
The manu's fine as long as Moko doesn't do it in Speedos.
Okay. Colleagues, we're going to have a show of hands. All those in favour say aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Colleagues, that brings us to the end of the public. I'll move that we move into PX, seconded by Sarah. We're going to have a bit of a break for the bathroom, and then we'll get into the final part. So all those in favour say aye. Those against, thank you. How about a 10